Oh, now we're good? Okay, we're going to start our UVU QuickFire podcast. Of course, I'm Andrew Creer, as always, with my partner in crime, Tanner Heath.
Welcome to today's show. It's been a couple weeks, but we are back and ready to roll, so let's get it.
We totally did not record a show last week that the audio didn't work.
Didn't happen.
All right, so we're going to start off with our typical first story. We talk about these guys a lot as our first story. They're probably our biggest sports story on campus most of the time. The UVU men's basketball team, they've won 18 straight games at home. I think they're on a 5-game winning streak. And tonight, they're in Tucson, Arizona to take on the Arizona Wildcats. It's probably their biggest game of the year out of conference. Tanner, outlook and impact of this game.
It'll be their toughest game left on the non-conference. They've already played a couple tough non-conference games. All on the road, losing somewhat big in some, but obviously in their Las Vegas tournament, playing some teams about their same level, they won that tournament. So, I mean, away games and neutral site games are going to play a huge role for them in conference, so I think they can gain a lot from this game. I
think they can too. I think their chances of winning are slim. It's really hard to win at Arizona if you're anybody. I mean, any top team in the nation, I think even if Gonzaga headed down to Tucson, I think they'd lose.
Yeah.
So I don't think that their chances are very high tonight. I hope that they play well. I hope that they can show that they've come a long way within the last few years. And again, I just have respect for Mark Pope scheduling these non-conference games. They're not easy games to win, especially on the road. They've really taken a big step, I think, in showing that they're trying to be a bigger team than they have been before, and so I'm excited for them.
Yeah, so we'll look into that more on our next show after they've played Arizona and they're getting ready to wrap up non-conference. We'll see how much they've gained from that. Moving into our next story is men's wrestling. If you do not know, the men's wrestling team is ranked number 22 in the nation. And what you also might not know is they are also in the Big 12 conference, so they wrestle against a lot of big schools. And being ranked at this spot early on in the season is huge for them. Another person that is to note on their team, Demtrius Romero, being named the WAC Wrestler of the Week.
Yep.
Andrew, what are you expecting from the wrestling team as they head to the much anticipated South Beach duels?
I really hope they do well. It's something that we've discussed in this podcast before, but just always to mention that UVU is the only Division I wrestling program within the state.
Yeah.
To be ranked number 22 is a big deal. There are no other teams, I think, on campus that are continually ranked as high as the wrestling team is.
Yeah.
They do a really good job. I expect them to do well in South Beach. They have some really talented juniors and seniors on their team this year. They have the Lamonts. They've got Demtrius Romero. They've got I think his name's Brock Bastians, from what I remember. They've just been talented. I've been really excited to watch them perform, and I think it's one of those hidden gems at UVU that we don't necessarily hear about a lot because it's men's wrestling. It's not really a mainstream sport, but always to remember that they are pretty much our top team on campus consistently. So
yeah.
I'm excited for them. They should be good. So another team that I love to talk about, So I used to cover the women's basketball team not too long ago. Last season I covered them. They've lost 3 straight in in-state matchups. They lost to BYU. They lost to Utah State. They lost to Southern Utah. They fell to 4-4 on the season. Things are starting to look more like last season for the women's basketball team. My question for you is, do you think that there's still hope that we had for them at the start?
I mean, it looks now that they might have a losing season, but their biggest hope is that they can stay, kind of back and forth consistent and still come out and win some games.
Yeah.
Don't go on these long losing streaks and kind of go back and forth and win some games and try to stay at 500. Their goal should be to stay at 500, and if they can do that, then they proved, all the coaches poll and everyone else that votes for that conference wrong. That they can finish better. So,
well, if they can finish, I think top 5 within the conference, that would be huge for them.
Yeah.
I think it's been really discouraging for them this year. I think to see how low that they are ranked in the coaches poll, The fact that they were highly criticized last season for not performing to an extent that people thought they were going to.
Yeah.
Of course, their home loss against Chicago State was a really big deal.
Yeah.
I really hope that they can pull it around, because the thing about especially WAC women's basketball is all that matters is your conference play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe these are going to be a few tough moments they go through and they can step back and kind of reevaluate. But I think that that's been the biggest issue with UVU these last few seasons is it seems like they start off slow and then they hit conference play and they've changed nothing.
Yeah.
So they just continually are bad.
Yeah.
Hopefully they've made some adjustments and they can adjust to WAC conference play. That would be my hope.
Which this year is different. They started off fast. They were 4-1. They've lost 3 in a row, so we'll look to see how they can rebound in the rest of non-conference play, and hopefully it shows that they can actually start winning some games in conference.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Women's volleyball. As you may not know, they lost in the WAC championship, but they still got an invite to the NIVC, the National Invitational Volleyball Championships. And they played Wyoming last Thursday or Friday, and they pulled off an epic comeback win in Laramie in the first round, and then they were beaten by Portland in the second round. Andrew, what are your thoughts on the team as they wrap up the season?
They've been really impressive this year. I've really enjoyed watching the women's volleyball team this year. They were better than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
The thing is we play in a state that's just a powerhouse for volleyball.
Yeah.
BYU's always good. Utah is usually continually
both those
pretty
teams
good.
played each other in the second round of the NCAA tournament. So,
I mean, we have a pretty big volleyball powerhouse here within the state. I think UVU, much like the men's basketball team, they're starting to show on their women's volleyball side that they're here to compete.
Yeah.
They're not here to just be another kind of mid-major school within the state. And I think that they're heading in the right direction. Their win against Wyoming was great. They looked really good. Hopefully we can just keep grabbing some high-level recruits and just keep moving the way that we are. So I've been really impressed.
Yeah, great direction for next year. I wouldn't be surprised, if they're projected, top 3 in the conference next year after being able to advance all the way to the WAC championship, which nobody projected them to do. Yeah. And then to get that invite to the Invitational and play as well as they did in that first game, and just they kind of gave it all in that game, and they just didn't have enough left in that second round. So
and they weren't projected to win that Wyoming game at all. They were projected to lose pretty significantly, and they came back and they fought in that 5th set and just really pounded it home to Wyoming, and it was in Wyoming. So that's a big deal too. They did it on the road, so I'm really, really proud of them.
Yeah, congrats to the women's. Yeah, congrats to the women's volleyball team this season.
Seriously. So on a bit of a more somber note, we thought it would be important to mention the passing of former UVU track star Laryea-Akrong. Ala finished his battle with leukemia at age 35 the other day. Laryea-Akrong still holds the record at UVU for the 55 and 60-meter dashes. He also ranks top 10 in 7 events. Their head coach, Scott Houle, said, "I'm so proud of the fact that he came to UVU. With his talent, he could have run anywhere in the country, but he came to this university and genuinely made it a better place by being here."
Yeah, so we just want to send our condolences out to him and his family. And a cool thing to note on an article on him on the UVU Athletics website is, they listed those accolades, but it also mentions in the first line, it says that he was a rising star at UVU both on the track and in the classroom. And so he came here with a goal to, get a degree as well, and to make school a big focus. And I think that's really cool. And, his former coach, gave some really great words
and
about him.
He finished in the WAC all academic rankings as well. It's just interesting to note for me from a personal perspective. I work at UVU custodial, and I work with a lot of international students who run on the track team. Yeah. And they really do come here and work. Yeah. And they work hard. And he definitely was an example of just sticking things through. He was a great athlete, did a lot of amazing things for the track team. And so it's sad to see him leave so soon. But again, he did an amazing job. So we just want to congratulate him for all the things he's able to do here, and hopefully his family's doing all right. Yeah. All that kind of stuff. Alrighty. Well, I think we are going to take a quick break, actually. Tanner's got to go give a presentation in a class. So I don't know exactly what our plan is from here, but we'll be right back.
Stay tuned for our Big Four and our final stretch coming up.
Yep. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ethan Young here, the podcast producer at the UVU Review. just thought I'd let you know that before this podcast, we recorded another podcast called Banter. And now Banter is a podcast where we just kind of hang out with journalists and at the UV Review and talk about whatever. This last podcast, we talked about how Burger King is trying a different marketing program, as well as a small cow in comparison to Knickers the Big Cow we talked about on the first episode, as well as political correctness. So a whole variety of things. If you'd like to take a listen, go ahead and subscribe to UVU Review Podcast and send us a message through the app or on Facebook group, on the Facebook Messenger, whatever you feel like.
We are back from break.
We are.
And we're going to kick it off with our Big Four. Our first story from the Big Four is about the Utah Jazz. Kyle Korver, home opener, ended with a franchise record in 3-pointers, as well as a 139-105 throbbing of the Spurs. Andrew, is this a definite sign that the Jazz are now heading in the right direction?
I really hope so. So I was at that game.
Mm-hmm.
I went to that Jazz Spurs game. They couldn't be stopped. They looked so much more fluid offensively, more fluid than I've seen them look all year. They looked better than they have all year. Something interesting that Korver does is they put him in the secondary unit, and I think Quinn Snyder basically tells him, go out there and shoot until you score 15 points.
Yeah.
Because that's all they needed out of their secondary. Their secondary couldn't score, and so they found a guy in Kyle Korver who can just shoot. Yeah. So I think that they made the right choice there, and I really, really hope that they can continue to play the way that they have.
Yeah.
So I guess my main question is, at first they were projected to finish like 3rd or 4th in the Western Conference. Do you still think that that's realistic for them, or do you think that they're going to still kind of stay lower tier?
I mean, it's crazy because I think from the 2 seed on to the 8 seed in the West, it's like a 3-game difference right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's gonna be up and down all season, I think. And so definitely, I think their ceiling. I think their ceiling this year is a 4 seed. You know, similar to last year. I think that's what they. I mean, that's not what they're gonna shoot for. They're gonna want higher. You know, they're gonna want to be better. But I think in the long run, they're gonna get that 4 or 5 seed again.
Yeah, and I think just focusing on the acquisition of Korver. So now you have not only Joe Ingles in your lineup, but you have Korver.
Yeah.
And so the Jazz have obviously figured out that in order for them to succeed in this league, they're going to have to hit perimeter threes. Yeah. So they've got 2 guys who can do that now. Donovan Mitchell's a great perimeter shooter too. Yeah. So I think that their ceiling, I agree with you. I think it's about the same. I think it's about the 4th seed. But they looked unstoppable against the Spurs. They play the Rockets tonight, who the Rockets haven't been particularly impressive either as of late. I think that there's a good opportunity for them to kind of prove that they're heading in the right direction. I think they're doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So let's take a look here. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Utah Utes playing the Pac-12 championship. They lost. Yeah. They got the Holiday Bowl against Northwestern coming up. Pretty big bowl game for them to get this season. What do you think your projections and predictions are for Utah going up against Northwestern in San Diego?
It'll be interesting because, you know, it's not a typical Northwestern team. It's a Northwestern team that just got off playing in the Big Ten championship. And so I think they should look at it as, you know, I think Northwestern is a team that can kind of play similar to some Pac-12 teams. And I think they need to look at it as, hey, like this is still a big opponent. Like it's still a good bowl game. Yeah. So, I mean, their key is just to not come out flat because Northwestern's a team that's played against similar, you know, solid competition all year, and a team that all as well as them, you know, were able to get to a conference championship. So I think they don't play the same, obviously, but they play to the same type of competition.
I think they do, and I think it is a big bowl game to have the Pac-12 runner-up and the Big Ten runner-up. Yeah, I think that's a big matchup. The thing that Northwestern does that's similar to Utah is they both play really good defense. So it's going to be another like Washington-Utah game where it's going to be determined by 3 to 7 points. Yeah. Obviously, Utah got really unlucky with that interception that they had against Washington, as well as an obvious missed PI call at the end of the game. But that's not the reason they lost, though, obviously. But still, it was disappointing. I'm excited to see how both of them play. I think Utah has a good chance to win. I think Kyle Whittingham is one of the best bowl-oriented coaches in the nation. He's proven that when he has time to prepare, he wins games.
Yeah.
So I think that they win that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really good for them to get a Holiday Bowl win under their belts going into the next season.
Yeah.
The other thing that is concerning, though, for the Utes is they're now without Tyler Huntley, Zach Moss, and Britt Covey for their bowl game. That's pretty much their offense. So they're going to need to figure out other ways to score. But they did against BYU, so hopefully they can figure it out against Northwestern.
And they were able to keep it close against Washington, you know.
Yeah.
And in a game where Washington was projected to win by a couple more than what the final score was. So the fact that they were able to play that well at defense, you know, find a way to try to win the game, it was impressive.
Well, I really think that the Utes do have a top 10 defense in the nation. I really think that they are that good. And I think that they have depth on offense. I think that they've been able to figure out how to put guys into positions to succeed. However, they did really struggle against Washington. They only put 3 points up, so hopefully they can figure out just a better way to get their offense going. But I think they can. I think they can figure it out.
Okay, let's talk potatoes, specifically the Idaho Potato Bowl. The BYU Cougars have a bowl of their own coming up, the one I just mentioned. They will be facing Western Michigan, and it will be before Christmas. Andrew, what are your thoughts on BYU's bowl selection?
They better win.
Yeah.
I mean,
very winnable game.
A lot of people thought that they kind of got an underhanded selection, but that's what happens when you win 6 games.
Exactly. You got to be happy to be back in the bowl picture.
Yeah.
You know.
So they better win. I mean, that's the big thing is if BYU wants to kind of have this level of respect that they think that they deserve, they better go out, and they better not beat Western Michigan like 14-7.
Yeah.
They better beat them like 35-7.
Yeah, this is a team that definitely they should be able to put some points on the board against. You know, the offense has looked really solid over the last couple weeks
really
of the season, especially against Utah's defense to put up 27 points in less than 3 quarters. So yeah, I think they should definitely go into this game and treat it as maybe a bigger game than it is, just so they come out more and they win this game handily and put momentum into next season, have more respect going into next season.
And BYU's definitely had a grinder of a season. You know, they've really had to work through a lot of different things.
Yeah.
They've had to work through a quarterback change. I think there really has been a lot of pressure on Kalani Sitake this year because I think he is in the hot seat.
Yeah.
I think it would be really nice for him to get a bowl win under his belt.
Yeah.
I think it would really help him going into the next season, which is the last contractual season he has, because they really do need to get the ball rolling over there in that program.
Yeah.
But I think that they should win, and I hope they win. I hope they do win because I think it helps. I think it helps the state of Utah look better in the football spectrum.
Exactly.
Things look a lot better for us if BYU, Utah, and Utah State win their bowl games.
Exactly.
It looks a lot better.
And that's going to lead us into our next thing, Andrew. What do we got for Utah State?
So Utah State got selected for the New Mexico Bowl. They're playing North Texas after finishing. So they didn't make it to their conference championship game because they lost to Boise State. So then Fresno State beat Boise State in their conference championship game, 16-13. My main question for you is, do you think Utah State's getting the respect they deserve?
No, but the thing is, here's what happens: is when you're in a conference like that, you know, the Mountain West is on the outside looking in of the Power 5 conferences, and when you're on a high all season and you lose a game late, it's gonna hurt you more so than it's gonna hurt teams that are in that top, you know, the top 10 all year, and so they've gotten the recognition, especially because their coach Matt Wells is now gone. You know, he got the job at Texas Tech. And so, you know, they've been highlighted this year. They've been ranked on and off. And so losing that game late really hurt them. So I think they've gotten I mean, obviously there's a lot that goes into how they're going to schedule these bowl games, who's going to be in these bowl games. So, I mean, yeah, they should have gotten a better bowl game, but now they should go out and prove that, hey, we should have got a better one going into this game and just, you know, kick the crap out of North Texas.
Yeah. Well, and Utah State's proven that they can score big numbers on bad teams.
Yeah.
So if they really do think that they got screwed in the bowl selection, go out and score 70 points.
Yeah.
I don't think that their bowl selection was fair. I really think that Utah State should have gotten more. But that's kind of what happens when you have a breakout season.
Yeah.
It's basically they're going to hand you what they have because you haven't proven yourself over a long period of time.
Yeah.
I really thought they should have gotten a better bowl, only being a 2-loss team. Are they 2 or 3? I think they've lost 2.
I believe 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michigan State and then the late game against Boise
against
State.
the late game Boise State. And those are 2 tough games. I mean, I really, you look at it now, of course, Michigan State didn't turn out to be all that good.
Yeah.
But at a home opener against Michigan State, and then to go lose, I think they lost to Boise State at Boise State.
Yeah, it was at Boise State.
Those are 2 tough games. I mean, those are 2 tough games that any good team, I think, has the potential to lose. But I don't agree with their bowl selection, but at the same time, it's like you said, if you're in the Mountain West, you're in the Mountain West. So.
And the thing is, the factor goes into, I want to note Georgia. We'll get to other college teams later on our national story. But I heard a quote, and it was, if the 2 best teams on your schedule, if you say you play a hard schedule, and then the 2 best teams on that schedule you lose to, how much credibility should you get? And that could go for Utah State too. Michigan State and Boise State were the best teams on their schedule. They lost both those games. They lost both those games close.
Yeah.
Similar to Georgia losing to LSU and losing to Alabama in close games.
Yeah.
And so, it's just tough like that because you have so many great teams. You have so many arguments for all these teams. And so they didn't get the respect they deserve, but now they can go out and prove that, hey, we should have.
And the other thing that doesn't help Utah State in this situation is they really lost momentum with midway through the year. Their games became closer and closer.
Yeah.
They almost went to Colorado State and lost. They had to come back, and they won that game on that. If you
on
guys
an overturned
didn't see,
call.
yeah, an overturned call in the end where the Colorado State receiver stepped out of bounds, came back in, caught a touchdown, and won the game. But because he stepped out of bounds, Colorado State lost. Yeah. And I think Utah State gets a lot better of a bowl if this last half of the year they keep beating teams by 40 points.
Even if they maybe lost to Boise State,
So, I mean, there's some respect to be had for them for only losing 2 games this year, but they're in the Mountain West, so what do you do?
Yeah. So our hopes are all 3 Utah teams, win their bowl games.
Please.
They all should be projected to be winning, and especially BYU and Utah State should win their games pretty handily.
Utah's game's going to be close.
Yeah.
Utah's game should be the closest out of all of the games scheduled.
Yeah.
But I think they should win that game too. So
yeah,
that'd be really nice if every team that got a bowl selection. Also, I didn't put this in the story, but we can also mention Weber State. I mean, they're playing. They're playing the FCS championship games.
Yeah, they hosted a game.
Yeah.
So,
congratulations. Sorry, we kind of didn't get you in on the script, but.
So that's gonna segue us into our final stretch. We're gonna stick to bowl game theme. The college football playoff will begin on the December 29th, so a little earlier this year.
Yeah.
And we have Alabama against Oklahoma and Clemson against Notre Dame.
Okay.
I think it's time for us to give our predictions and projections for the most wonderful time of the bowl season.
Oh, so I really do think that Clemson's a lot better than Notre Dame is.
Notre Dame's the worst team out of the 4.
Yeah, Notre Dame's the worst team out of the 4.
Yeah.
And I think that Alabama's better than Oklahoma is.
Yeah.
However, I know that there's going to be one upset, so I've got to choose one. I think Oklahoma's more likely to upset Alabama in the first round.
I agree.
Because I think Clemson's going to kick the crap out of Notre Dame. I don't think that's even going to be a game.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Clemson this year, their offense has been so dominant, and every single team they've played, there hasn't been a question that they're going to win. They blow teams out of the water.
Yeah. And I mean, their only close game of the year was when their quarterback got hurt and their backup came in and led them back to a victory.
Yeah.
That was their closest game of the year.
So if I had to go, because I have to choose one upset, I'm going to have to say Oklahoma beats Alabama.
I agree.
I know that that's a bit of a stretch, but Alabama.
The other thing we don't know is how healthy Tua is going to be.
Well, I think.
I mean, he's got the time to recover, which is going to really benefit him. But Jalen Hurts is a guy who's been in a national championship game. He's played in the Final Four twice. So, I mean, you have the best of both worlds,
Well, and that's the other thing, too, is if you watched Jalen play against Georgia, he played out of his mind at the end of that game, and I think that he played a really good game. That's the thing about when you're Alabama, you can have as much depth as you want.
Yeah.
But I just have this feeling that I think Oklahoma just really has a better shot than I think a lot of people are giving them credit for.
Yeah.
They put points up on the board. They really have worked hard within their conference, and they really have dominated the last half of their conference in their conference play. So going back to talking about the teams getting into the Final Four, Georgia's coach came out and said after their loss to Alabama, which was a very close loss, and Georgia looked like they were going to win that game.
Yeah.
He came out and said, well, if you want the 4 best teams in the college football playoff, we should be in there. What do you think about his perspective on that?
I mean, they have an argument, but back to what I was comparing them to Utah State's kind of situation. if you have if you play a hard schedule all season, and the two best teams you play all year, you lose those games no matter how close they are.
Yeah.
You lose those games.
Yeah.
You know, you have Alabama, they didn't lose a game. You have Clemson, they didn't lose a game. They have, they beat all the hard teams on their schedule.
Yeah.
Who else do you have? You have Oklahoma. Now, they did lose a game against Texas. But then they came back and they beat Texas in the Big 12 championship, which I really think I really think helped them solidify them getting in over Georgia. And then you have Notre Dame, who they outright won every game this season. And so there's an argument to be made that Georgia is the best team to beat Alabama, but they've played 2 times in a year. Yeah. And Alabama's beaten them twice. So, I mean, how can you say that they're the best team to beat Alabama if they still haven't beaten them yet? Where you have Clemson. I mean, Clemson was no doubter, but Clemson's beaten them in the last 3 years. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's my thing, though, is I think that there's kind of this attitude within the SEC that, well, we're such a good conference that we should get 2 teams into the Final Four.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that that's another part of being in the SEC.
Yeah.
Is it's going to be harder for you to get in because you do have to beat Alabama. Yeah. If you want to get into the Final Four, you have to beat Alabama.
Exactly.
So for Georgia to come out and be like, well, we played them really close. And the thing is there's no – in the end of it, it's did you win or did you lose?
Yeah.
Did you win your conference championship game or did you lose your conference championship game? Now, if Georgia would have won, do I think Alabama and Georgia should have gotten in? Probably, yeah. I think so.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of bothers me that when I see 2 teams from one conference in there because it's like we have so many different conferences.
Exactly.
Why should I have to see 2 teams from the SEC?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they are 2 of the best teams in college football.
Yeah.
The other question I have for you is, so UCF doesn't get in.
Yeah.
They've won. They've had an undefeated season the year before, won their bowl game.
Yep.
They went undefeated again this year.
Yep.
Going to have another big bowl game.
Yep.
Do you think they deserve to get in, or do you think what do you think about that?
No, they don't. Especially this year, their starting quarterback, who's their best player, goes down when they have, I think, 2 games left, their final game of the regular season, along with their conference championship. So, I mean, you take him out, it's like, why do we want to watch these guys? He's been the most outspoken on the team, and he's been the best performer.
Yeah.
So it's like, if this guy's not playing, why do we want to put him on TV? And that's another thing. And I mean, another conversation argument for another place is one that doesn't even need to be made anymore. It's, do they need 8 teams? And well, yeah. Is there going to be more money made from that? Yeah. And it's just, they just want to wait, they want to play this out. And so eventually a team like a UCF will get in, but I think it's going to take 8 teams to be in that playoff to get in. And UCF can really prove themselves. They're playing LSU. Last year they played Auburn. Auburn was favored. They beat Auburn pretty well. This year they're playing LSU. LSU was a team that looked like they were for a while were going to be in the Final Four. And so they can really prove themselves again.
Yeah.
And so I think the main focus of what we've been talking about college football today is that a lot of teams can prove themselves going into the next season, and it really helps.
It's true. If UCF can beat LSU and go undefeated next year, there's no doubt they should get in.
Yeah.
Let them in. If they win however many games in a row that is, 38 games.
Yeah, that would be 38 by that point.
Let them in.
Yeah.
And so my thing about it is it's really hard for UCF to make this argument that they're the best team in college football.
Yeah.
Because you don't play anybody.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I don't really think this is a stretch to say that, it's like Washington won the Pac-12.
Yeah.
They don't deserve to be in the Final Four.
No.
By any means.
No.
But if they were in the Final Four, I think Washington has a better chance of winning their game than UCF does.
Yeah, that's the biggest point, too. And the one thing about the 8 teams is people are like, well, if we have 8 teams, we're going to get, Washington against UCF. How are we going to market that? It's college football. It's college football in the bowl season. You're going to be able to market it no matter what, no matter where you're playing. So, but overall, there was teams that, got the short end of the stick, but we're going to have a good playoff. We're going to have 2 awesome games. And if I had to pick one upset with you, it'd be Oklahoma over Alabama. But I think we can both come to an agreement. It's going to be Clemson, Alabama.
So, yeah, it's probably going to be Clemson, Alabama again. I don't know who wins that game, though. I really don't. I would have to say I want to go with Alabama just because I'm tired of watching. Well, I'd have to go with Clemson because I'm tired of watching Alabama.
Yeah.
But Alabama's Alabama.
Yeah.
So if I had to go with my matchups that I set, so it's going to be, if it turns out to be Oklahoma-Clemson, I do think Clemson wins that game pretty easily. If it does end up being Alabama-Clemson, I still think Clemson has an edge for me. I think that they've just been really dominant, and I know Alabama's really good, but I don't know if Alabama's played anybody as good as Clemson.
Exactly.
So that's what I'd go with.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
That is our show today. I'll let Andrew send us off.
Yeah. So thank you for listening to the QuickFire podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. We also have other podcasts on our network. As always, we've got the office hours, we've got banter, we've got a bunch of different stuff going on. If listening to podcasts isn't your thing, that's okay. We've got plenty of other content on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at UVU Review, or on our website at uvu.com or The Review. You spell that THERE.VU. And always, if you have a suggestion, send us an email. You can send it to my email, andrewcareer@gmail.com, or uvureview@gmail.com. That's spelled the regular way, UVU, and then REVIEW@gmail.com. You can also send us an audio message through the Anchor app or through Facebook Messenger at UVReview. Helps a lot if we have more content to talk about. So, as always, I want to thank Tanner Heath, partner in crime. We've got our podcast specialist, Ethan Young, running everything. The show does not work without him, so we always like to thank him. Have a good winter break. We might have an episode, we might not. Just depends. So, if not, have fun watching college football and basketball. So
Enjoy your break. Watch some sports. Thanks. Love you guys.
yeah.